Hi everybody and happy Monday. Welcome to the chapter recording for chapter 5. I hope everyone had a great weekend. If you have any questions about the previous homework assignments, I will be grading them before the end of the day today, which is Monday the 14th. And I will get your grades back to you. I've had some people who have sent me some of the past assignments and I have regraded it for you. So please don't forget that normally you are allowed to do that. My cutoff is by the end of the week, so if you want to do any week one, if you wanted to do any week one assignments over again, I was accepting them until Saturday night. But if you didn't do that, don't worry about it. You can still make up a lot of your grade in the next couple of weeks. So we have a lot of opportunities. We have a lot of assignments coming up, and a lot of videos to watch. So I hope this is helpful. Let's start right off the bat because I want to get this material covered quickly because I don't want to take too much of your time. But I will be slow enough so that I can make sure that you understand the material. So this is a really interesting topic. Most people really hate this because it's combining letters and numbers, and math becomes algebra, and that's just not what many people are comfortable with. So I hope that, in watching this lecture, you feel a lot more comfortable. So solving for the unknown, how to approach for solving equations. What happens when someone gives you a word problem and there's one number that you don't know? If you knew that one number, you could solve the entire equation. That is what we're going to be covering today. So learning objectives, I never cover those just because it takes so much time. You're more than welcome to pause and read that if you want. So let's go over some basic terminology first. It's better to do that because then going in you'll know what it is we're talking about. So an expression, it's a meaningful combination of numbers and letters called terms. So 5x is a term, but 5x plus 2, that's what we call an expression. An equation, it's a mathematical equation with an equal sign that has showing a mathematical statement with an equal sign showing that a mathematical expression on the left is equal to the expression on the right. Okay? So expression, equal sign, that's what you call an equation. Now, this might sound very basic, but here's why it's important. Because whenever you start adding letters and numbers together, sometimes we throw logic out the way and we try to remember the rules. But if you remember that an equation means what's on the left is equal to what's on the right, then hopefully that is something that will guide you when you overthink it, or if you're overcomplicating it, then you can come back to it and remember that if it's whatever you do on the left side of the equation, you have to do on the right side of the equation because they have to be equal. And a formula is an equation that expressed in symbols, a general fact, rule, or principle. And then of course variables and constants. What are variables and constants? Constants are, they don't change. 5 plus 5, both of those are constants. But x plus 5, that x is a variable. That answer will change according to what x is. And so another word for that is the known and the unknown. The constants are always known. We know what it is. And the variable changes. It's unknown, but at the same time we can change it. And it will have a different answer based on what we change it to. So, solving equations for the unknown. Dick's age in 8 years will equal 58. Okay? So basically they're saying, how old is he today? If in 8 years he's going to be 58, how old is he today? Now some of you might say, well, duh, I know that. Well, good for you. So what you're doing is, in your mind, you're going through the processes that I'm teaching you. But what happens if there's a bit of a more complicated question? Well, then the same thing that you're doing quickly in your mind, I'm going to teach you a process of doing that so that it's more helpful to you. So on the left side of the equation is a plus 8. What is a? It's the unknown. We don't know, right? So something, his current age, plus 8, because in 8 years, he's going to be 58. So what plus 8 is 58? right? That's how we put these the word problem into terms and expressions so that we can solve the equation. Okay, but let's go over some rules first before we begin, so that it'll help you systemize your working out. So if no number is in front of the letter, it is a 1. So B is equal to 1B, C is equal to 1C, X is equal to 1X, Y is equal to 1Y. Pretty simple, just like we said in fractions, any number, if you wanted to convert it to a fraction, it would be over 1, because anything over 1 is the same. And if there's no sign in front of a letter or a number, it is positive, it is addition. So C is equal to plus C, 4 is equal to plus 4. Okay, this might not make sense right now, but I'm going to tie it in for you as we start working out some problems. Solving for the unknown rule. I mentioned this earlier. Whatever you do to the one side of the equation, you must do it to the other side of the equation. Here's the visual image for you. Okay? Whatever you do to the one side of the equation, say you add, you have to do to the other side of the equation, add some more. Because if you don't do that, your equation is lopsided, then the left side doesn't equal the right side anymore. Right? So whatever you do to the one side, if you're bringing it down, -2, then you have to bring this -2 so that it's always equal, because the left side has to equal the right side at all times. Okay, and then there's a thing called the opposite process rule. So addition and subtraction, they're in one group, and multiplication and division, they're in another group. So the opposite of adding is subtracting, and the opposite of subtracting is adding. On this side, the opposite of multiplying is dividing, and the opposite for dividing is multiplying. And so when we're solving equations, many times we use the opposite of something to get use of it. So if that's confusing, hang on just a second, but we're going to get to that. But I just want you to remember that the opposite of adding is subtracting. The opposite of subtracting is adding. The opposite of multiplying is dividing, and the opposite of dividing is multiplying. So let's go back to how did we mathematically solve that the problem where in 8 years Dick's age will be 58. Okay, so A plus 8 is equal to 58. Okay, remember that A, because it's just a letter, in front of it is 1A. Okay, that's going to come into handy more, that's going to make more sense as we go along. So A plus 8 is 58. How do you solve this? Well, remember, I haven't said this yet. Number 1, okay, to solve any equation that has letters and numbers, you want to get all the letters on the one side and all the numbers on the other side. So what can we do to make sure the letters are on the one side and the numbers are on the other side? So A plus 8 is equal to 58. So let's try to get A on the one side, and let's try to get the numbers on the other side. That'll solve our equation for us. So is it going to be easier to get A alone? We have to take away that 8. Okay? This is where the opposite process rule comes in. A plus 8 is equal to 58. So to get rid of that plus 8, we have to do the opposite. All right? A minus 8. Okay? If we say plus 8 minus 8, we don't do anything, so we get rid of it. Right? But here's the thing. Right? It has to still be an equation. So what we do to the one side, minus 8, we have to do to the other side, minus 8. So we say A plus 8 minus 8 equals 58 minus 8. So then we get the answer, A is 50. Now what does that mean again? That just means that his present age, his current age, how old he is right now, is 50. Remember, always take it back. Make sure, I think I taught this in the very, very first chapter. If your answer doesn't make sense to the question, that's an indication to you that you got it wrong. So always check, does that make sense? So he's 50 right now, plus 8, which means in 8 years he'll be 58. That's your check. If that makes sense, good for you. You're right. You figured out the problem. You solved the equation. So, equation equality rule. Okay, this is kind of what we just went over. You can add the same quantity or number to both sides of the equation, or subtract from the same side of the equation without affecting the equality. So, equality doesn't matter if it's equal down here, equal up here, equal up here, or equal up here, right? They're all equal. So what we're trying to figure out is what can we do? What do we have to add or subtract to both sides to make sure that we always stay equal? You can also divide or multiply both sides of the equation by the same quantity or number, except 0, because anytime you multiply anything by 0, the answer is 0, and then you just nullify everything. So don't do that without affecting the equality of the equation. This will make more sense as we do some practice problems, okay? So 7g is equal to 35. Remember, anytime there's a letter and a number right next to each other, it means they're multiplied. So 7g is 7 times g. Okay? So 7 times g is equal to 35. Remember, now we want all the letters on the one side and all the numbers on the other side. So we divide the left by 7. All right, just using the cancellation technique that we learned. Cancel 7 from the top and 7 from the bottom. Now here's the thing, we're not kind of just getting rid of them. Remember, if we get rid of it, that 7, we put a 1 in front of it, so 1g divided by 1. Anything divided by 1, remember, is the same number. So 5 over 1 is 5. 2 over 1 is 2. So g over 1 is 1, but this is 1g over 1, right? So the point I'm trying to make is if there's a 1 in front of everything, you can kind of just ignore it, okay? So we get rid of the 7s, but we have to do it on the same side, on the same thing on the other side. So 7g divided by 7 is g, but we have to say 35 divided by 7 as well, because we did divided by 7 on this side. So divided by 7, 35 divided by 7 is 5. G is equal to 5. Okay? So that's how we solve the problem. Now let's check it. Okay? 7 times 5, parentheses means times 5, means multiplication. 7 times 5 is 35. Is 7 times 5 35? Yes. That means we got our equation right. We solved it correctly. So, multiple processes rule. What we just did was really simple. It was just one step. Divided by 7, got the answer. What happens when you have to do more than one thing? Well, there's the system. Okay? Number one, if there's anything you can add or subtract, you need to do that first. And then you need to check multiplication or division. Okay? What does that look like? H over 4 means divided by 4, h divided by 4 plus 2 is equal to 5. Okay? Step number 1 is add or subtract. We have an add over there, so because of the opposite processes rule, we have to subtract. So plus 2, remember opposite process rule, we have to make it minus 2. So h divided by 4 plus 2 minus 2 is just h divided by 4. And then on the other side, 5 minus 2 is 3. Okay? So now h divided by 4 is equal to 3. But now we can move on to step 2. That isn't the answer. H divided by 3, so that still doesn't mean anything. Right? So since we're dividing by 4, the only way we can get rid of that dividing by 4 is we have to multiply it by 4. So h divided by 4 times 4, remember when you divide by 4 times by 4, it just cancels itself out. So it's just h. Okay? And then on the other side, because we multiplied by 4 here, we have to multiply by 4 here. And so it's h is equal to 4 times 3, which is 12, and that is our answer. H is equal to 12. But now, does that make sense? So we go back to the equation and we put the 12 where h was supposed to be. Okay? So now 12 over 4 plus 2 equals 5. That's what it should make sense because we're checking our answer. So 12 divided by 4 is 3. 3 plus 2 is 5, and it does equal 5, so we got our answer right. Okay, one more rule, parentheses rule. Every time you have parentheses, that means it kind of skips ahead to the beginning of the line, okay? So you always have to solve for parentheses, and then you do addition or subtraction, and then you do multiplication or division, okay? Parentheses, add or divide, multiply or divide. That's just how it works. So let's put this in practice. 5p minus 4 is equal to 20. Now what does 5p minus 4 mean? Basically, it just means that whatever's on the inside of the parentheses, you have to multiply it to what's on the outside of the parentheses. So 5p, so you have to say 5 times p, which is 5p, minus, because we're going to keep the minus the same, 5 times 4, which is 20. Okay, so now that we solved the parentheses, we got rid of the parentheses. So we say 5 times p and 5 times 4, which is 5p minus 20, is equal to 20. Okay, so now that we've done with the parentheses, now we can go down to the adding and subtracting, and then the multiplying and dividing. So 5p minus 20, how do we get rid of that minus 20? Remember, we want the letters on the one side, the p's on the one side, and the numbers on the other side. Okay, so 5p minus 20 equals 20. So we plus 20 on this side, right, because of the opposite process rule. So minus 20, to get rid of it, we have to say plus 20. So 5p minus 20 plus 20, which is just 5p. And then we have to do the same to the other side. So it's 20 plus 20, which is equal to 40. So now 5p equals 40. So now we did our parentheses, we did our adding or subtracting. Now we have to do multiplying or dividing, because the answer 5p equals 40, that still doesn't make sense. Okay? So now 5p, remember what I said? It's 5 times p. So to get rid of a times by 5, we have to say divided by 5. Right? So 5p divided by 5 is equal to p, but we divided by 5 on this side, so we have to divide by 5 on this side. 40 divided by 5 is equal to 8. So now p is equal to 8. Let's check it out. Okay? We put the 8 where the p is supposed to be, and we say 5 times 8 minus 4 is equal to 20. What's 8 minus 4? It's 4. So 5 times 4 is 20. 20 equals 20, which means we solved the equation right. Okay, like unknown rule. What happens when we have a lot of p's in the one place? We have to make sure that you combine all your unknowns. Remember, your letters are your unknowns. We know what the number are, and we're just trying to figure out what number does the letter stand for. That's why we call it the unknown. So the purpose of the solving for the unknown is to find the unknown. So the first thing you have to do is make sure you combine all the unknowns and then keep going through your equation. So 4a plus a equals 20. So what do we have to do? We have to first get all our unknowns together. We have to combine all our unknowns. Remember, if any letter doesn't have a number before it, it means there's a 1. So 4a plus 1a is equal to 5a. And 5a equals 20 divided by 5. Here there's no parentheses, so we can skip that step. We already did the adding technically, right? And so there's no need to do adding or subtracting. And now we go to multiply and divide. So it's 5a, so that means 5 times a. That means to get rid of the multiply, we have to divide it by 5, right? And then we have to divide it on this side by 5 as well. So a is equal to 4. So let's put that in, let's plug it and check. Everywhere there's the a, we need to put a 4, okay? So 4 times 4 in the parentheses plus 4 is equal to 20. So 4 times 4 is 16, plus 4 is 20, and 16 plus 4 is 20. So we just solved this equation, and we know we got it right. So how do you know, okay, if I give you a big old long sentence, how do you get it to the equation form and then solve it? Because sometimes the hardest part about math is actually getting the equations put together. Because once you get the equation, you can just follow these steps, right? So there's kind of a system to do this as well, but it just comes by practice. We'll keep doing it again and again. Number 1, read the entire problem. Read the entire problem so that you don't just imagine or guess what it is that they're looking for. Read it again if necessary. Okay? Number 2, ask, what is the problem looking for? What am I trying to get? What should this answer mean? What am I looking for? Okay? And then let a variable represent the unknown. So if they say how many computers, then you say why, unknown, because they're asking how many. You don't know, so it's unknown. How many computers, so y becomes, or you can even make it a c, right? Becomes, it doesn't matter what letter you pick as long as you're consistent. If you pick Y, then every time computers comes up, it has to be Y. If you pick C for computers, every time it comes up, it has to be the same. Okay? And then visualize the relationship between the unknowns and the variables. Okay? So every time, now you try to think, okay, remember when we had Dick's age in 8 years is going to be 58. Okay? So we knew his current age plus 8 is equal to 58, right? So you need to visualize that relationship. Are we adding? Are we subtracting? What are we trying to get? And then, of course, check your results like we've been doing for every equation to make sure that you have accuracy and that you're right. And here's a good way of doing it. Figure out what is your unknown, what is your variable, and what relationship do they have. For example, ICM Company sold 4 times as many computers as Ring Company. Okay? The difference in their sales is 27. How many computers of each company were sold? So ICM, so right, how many, the question is, how many computers? So computers, we're going to say C. Okay? So ICM sold 4 times as many computers as Ring Company. Okay? So Ring Company is going to be a regular C. They sold this many computers. We're going to solve to find out how much that is. Whatever that is, ICM sold 4 times as many, so it's going to be 4C. Okay? But we know the relationship, the difference between their sales is 27. So 4C minus C is equal to 27. So whatever ICM sold minus whatever Ring Company sold is equal to 27. So now we just go ahead and solve like normal. Okay? Number 1, 4C minus C is equal to 27. Number 1, combine like unknowns. 4C minus C. Okay? That's equal to 3C. 3C equals 27. There's no parentheses and there's no more adding or subtracting. So what we're going to do is go straight to multiply and divide. 3C, which means you're times by 3. So this side you want to divide by 3, this side divide by 3. 27 divided by 3 is 9. Okay, so what does C mean again? C equals 9. What does that mean? That means Ring Company sold 9 computers, right? 9C. C is equal to 9. And ICM sold 4 times of that. So they sold 4 times 9, which is 36. So now you want to check the answer. Is 36 minus 9 equal to 27? Yes, it is. That means you got the answer right. That means now you know how many computers of each company were sold. Ring Company, 9 computers. ICM, 36 computers. Did you answer the question? Yes, you did. Okay, so always at the end go back and look at the question. What is the question? Did you answer it? How many computers of each company were sold? 9 for Ring and 36 for ICM. And now the equation makes sense because 36 minus 9 is equal to 27. Let's do couple more. Solve the unknown from the equation. Okay? B plus 110 is equal to 400. Number 1 rule, combine like terms. There are no like terms. There's only B. Okay? Number 2, parentheses. Do we have any parentheses? No. Number 3, add or subtract. Okay? We have add right over there. Remember, so we have a plus 110. So we want to get the letters on the one side and the numbers on the other side. So How do we get rid of that 110 and take it to the other side? Because it says plus 110, we have to minus 110 on this side, minus 110 on this side. And 400 minus 110 is equal to 290. So B is equal to 290. Let's check. Is 290 plus 110 400? Yes, it is. That means our answer is correct. Okay? Solve the unknown from the following equation. 5y is equal to 75. Again, parentheses, like terms, no like terms. We have just the y and all the y's are together. Okay? Number 2, parentheses. We don't have any parentheses. Number 3, add or subtract. We don't have any add or subtract. Number 4, multiply or divide. 5y is 5 times y. Right? So we divided by 5 on this side, divided by 5 on this side. When you say 75 divided by 5, you get 15. So y is equal to 15. Okay? Double check your answer. Is 5 times 15 75? Yes, it is. That means you got it right. Okay? Now, let's practice the word problem. Lee and Fred are elementary school teachers. Fred works for a charter school in Pacific Palisades, however you say that, California, where class size reduction is a goal for 2013. Lee works for a non-charter school where funds do not allow for class size reduction policies. Lee's 5th grade class, okay, all of that was extra information that you probably didn't need to know. Here's where the actual problem starts. Lee's 5th grade class has 1.4 times as many students as Fred's. If there are a total of 60 students, how many students does Fred's class have? How many students does Lee's class have? Okay, so this is how you solve it. Lee's class has 1.4 times as many as Fred's. So let's figure out how much does Fred have first, because if we know that, we'll be able to figure out Lee's, because we just say whatever Fred has times 1.4 and we'll get Lee's class size. Okay? So we're going to designate Fred as X. That's what we're trying to solve. And if Fred is X, then Lee is 1.4X, because whatever Fred's class is, times 1.4, you'll get Lee's class. But here's the thing. If there are a total of 60 students, what does total mean? It means Lee's class plus Fred's class, right, is 60 students. So 1.4x plus x is equal to 60 students. Okay? Now let's put this into equation form so that we can solve it. So x plus 1.4x is equal to 60. Combine like terms. 1x plus 1.4x is 2.4x. 2.4x equals 60. Okay? Now, you look parentheses, because we already did like terms. Got that out of the way. Do we have parentheses? No. Do we have add or subtract? No. So now we go straight to multiply and divide. 2.4x is times 2.4, so we want to divide 2.4 on this side so that we can get, and so that we can divide this side by 2.4. Okay? 60 divided by 2.4 is 25. So x is equal to 25. Now what is x again? Go back to the table up top. Fred is x. Fred's class is x, right? So we said if we figured out Fred's class, we would be able to figure out what Lee's class is. We would just say times 1.4, right? So now we say 25 times 1.4, and that's 35. Okay? So Lee's class has 35 students. Fred's class has 25 students. 25 plus 35 is equal to 60. And 60 is the total of the class, of both classes combined, which means we got our sum right. Okay, and that was the last problem. That was the last equation. For your notes, I am going to change it. Because this is math, I'll just have you write down the steps. So number 1, combine like terms. Number 2, parentheses. Number 3, add or subtract. Number 4, multiply or divide. And then I want you to explain the problems in your own answers right? How you would get it out. And then instead of making notes, like a summary for those words, I want you to explain it as if someone in your class didn't understand the material. How would you explain it to them? Okay, I hope that'll make it a little bit easier and it'll be less time consuming, because if you understand it, you should be able to quickly type it out. Again, if you have any questions, if you need some help with the assignments, let me know. I'll be there to help you anytime. Other than that, enjoy the assignment. I will see you again in a little bit in my recording of Chapter 8.